I miss the old LEMMiNO. The top 10 memes LEMMiNO. The post more than biannually LEMMiNO. Please. Let me know when you're gonna post again.
Just let me know.
This year, some 57 million people are expected to cease existence and revert back to their natural state of non-existence, commonly defined.
Guys, little known fact. I mean, your doctor won't tell you this, okay? I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Being alive is actually very unnatural.
As death. Roughly 2/3 will die of a mysterious and as of yet incurable disease known as aging.
Oh.
Well, technically and medically speaking, old age is not in and of itself lethal, but it nonetheless weakens your body so as to make you less capable of combating that which is. Nevertheless, death as a result of age-related conditions is clouded in mystery, as we have yet to discern precisely why we age. Current understanding implies no singular element commands the aging process, but rather a combination of multiple interconnected factors. For example, the limits imposed by telomeres on cell division implies obsolescence may be programmed into our DNA.
That's not really programmed into your DNA though, is it? Is that how they... Wait.
For example, the limits imposed by telomeres on cell division implies obsolescence may be
I'm right. Right? Wait, I didn't even say anything. So my understanding was it just gets older, like it basically gets eroded every time you replicate the DNA. So instead of like the actual meat of the DNA getting eroded and you losing precious codons, you lose just a telomere. Do we lose it on purpose? Is that programmed? I don't know. Like basically the DNA just ages, right? I don't know.
Manipulation of specific genes in other animals and organisms can have drastic effects on the aging process. Furthermore, numerous studies have evinced that calories accelerates aging and thus less food could potentially extend longevity. So stop eating and you'll live forever. Who eats a burger that way? On the opposite side of the spectrum, aging may simply be a result of accumulative damage and waste. Hanging has been a common method of both suicide and homicide ever since the invention of rope and human necks. Today, hanging is primarily as those coroners and others remark that male hanging victims often died with priapism, which is a medical way of saying they frequently died with an erection. In fact, it is the belief of some historians that not one but 2 poles were erected upon the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
Ah, don't say that! What did you just say? Ew.
With an erection. In fact, it is the belief of some historians that not one but 2 poles were erected upon the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
Why would you say that, though? Jeez. But, I mean, erection is a medical term. Priapism is just a different term. Priapism is a prolonged erection, and it's usually painful. So blood rushes in, and blood cannot rush out. So the pole stays erect.
And that some artistic renditions of his divine likeness was more accurately hung than others. Though thy holy loins was frequently covered with drapes like the Renaissance version of pixelization, so the state of his majesty can merely be inferred. In any case, this discovery gradually evolved into a treatment for erectile dysfunction, as non-lethal strangulation produces the same effect, which in turn evolved into erotic asphyxiation. The exact physiological cause is not entirely clear, but a general inhibition of normal brain activity due to
That's where that comes from? So it actually makes physiological sense, kind of? What? Hello, hello. Emo Hamster God. Welcome, friend. Thanks for the follow. Started off strong.
The fear of death is known as thanatophobia, and fearing the end of our existence can be so overwhelming that many seek any explanation that promises continuation in place of termination. In other words, an afterlife. As far as science is concerned, death is the cessation of brain activity followed by natural decomposition of the body. One could argue that death is merely the absence of life, much like a shadow is the absence of light. But who is this science to tell us what to believe when we could ask those brought back to life after death? Between 10 to 20% of
But it's not, if you're dead, you're not coming back. So how are we gonna...
cardiac arrest survivors recall near-death experiences, memories
so
from when they were
near-death.
clinically dead and thus unconscious. Studies have found that these experiences are largely culture-dependent. For example, Christians are more likely to perceive angels, while Hindus are more likely to perceive gods of the underworld. Entities who escort the deceased towards an afterlife are known as psychopumps.
Psychobabble! Alright, so what's death? Technically, death is when you lose all reflexes. So basically, death is when you let out your last breath. When you don't have the breathing reflex anymore that you can do without thinking, obviously, I hope so, then you're dead. And when you're brain dead, sadly, there's no coming back from that. Brain dead just means you're dead. It doesn't mean you're in a prolonged coma or anything. It means you're dead, and that's it. That's all, folks.
Neither more nor less likely to have a near-death experience just because you are religious, as NDEs by atheists and others are just as common. While humans may be stuck with pathetic mortal bodies, some animals have transcended this futile existence and exhibit biological immortality. One such creature is the immortal hydra. Hydras are tiny...
Would you really rather be a hydra, though?
freshwater animals that look like miniature octopuses. While humans and our sad excuse of a body grows weaker with age, the hydra is just as strong playing bingo as when it graduated high school. In other words, they show no signs of aging nor the adverse effects
I mean, there's not much to age there, you know?
commonly associated with it. While its regenerative properties are poorly understood, the hope is for an improved understanding to aid in our quest for human immortality. Other creatures exhibiting some form of biological immortality include various species of jellyfish, lobsters, and flatworms.
I didn't know about the lobsters, though. I knew that the immortal jellyfish that that was going around in email chains like a decade and a half ago or something. But I didn't know about the lobsters. They just keep molting. How does that work? They're so... Like, with the hydra, I said there's not much to, you know... I mean, it's like a blob. But, I mean, it's not like that with lobsters. And as the shell gets bigger and harder to shed, they have more trouble cracking it and escaping their molt. Eventually, they just can't pull it off. And they're stuck inside, and then parasites and predators come and finish them off. Oh, God. Oh, no. Now that just made me sad. A whole other meaning to locked-in syndrome. Oh, you're growing, but you're in a shell? The cost of immortality. I don't know. I feel like that's the cost of having a shell that you can't break. Because you used to also be immortal, but you used to be able to molt. You know? Why does that happen? Why does it get harder to shed?
There's a unit of measurement known as a micromort. The name is a portmanteau of the words micro and mortality and measures the probability of sudden death in any given context. 1 micromort means the probability of death is 1 in 1 million. For example, approximately 1 out of every 150,000 skydiving attempts in the US result in death, which means that skydiving is rated at roughly 7 micromorts per jump. In order to be exposed...
That's actually not a lot, is it? 150,000? I'm starting to think it's worth the risk. My usual thinking with stuff like this is like, alright, let's say it all went wrong and you died. Was it really worth it? To get a slight rush of adrenaline and have a little bit of fun for a couple minutes? Really? Was that worth dying for? I don't know.
Doing something as simple as getting out of bed at 90 years of age will expose you to a daily dose of over 300 microborts. Okay. The deadliest job in America is...
300? Do I believe these statistics? I don't know. Because skydiving was 7. I mean, it did say for an old person, but still.
The presidency, which clocks in at a staggering 186,000 micromorts. Which is why I decided to make videos on the internet instead.
Right. Same. Imagine wanting to be the president of the United States. Cringe.
In most cultures, death is associated with a specific personification and commonly takes the shape of the Grim Reaper, a skeleton cloaked in a dark robe carrying a scythe used to reap the souls of the dead. But some ancient cultures personified death in a much less menacing fashion. For example, the ancient Greeks worshipped a god of death known as Thanatos. He was often depicted as a bearded man or a child with wings that merely guided the human soul into the afterlife. In other words, a psychopomp. The Egyptian god Osiris was depicted as a man with green skin and was more often revered than feared. This modern depiction of a menacing skeleton or demon can largely be attributed to the most devastating pandemic humanity has ever faced, the Black Death. This horrifying medieval plague may have reduced the European population by as much as 60% and consequently gave rise to a more dismal depiction of the Grim Reaper as to more accurately reflect the hopelessness and dismality of this plague.
What's so bad about death, chat? I mean, everyone's gonna die. Like you said, it's the cost of immortality might be pretty bad. I mean, everyone's gonna die. It's just how you die that's more sad or... Well, it's sad for the other people, by the way. It's not sad for you. When you're done, you're done. What's so bad about that? I don't know. Just live like you're gonna die. And then when you have a happy life and you're done with it, you're done with it. Why so scared of death? I love this, by the way.
Well, most depictions at least. Sometimes death is just ecstatic to play some mortal board games.
I should make this an emote. I love that. It's such a big contrast to my emotes as well.
Just look at that face. That is the face of a skeleton ready to play some chess. There's a rare mental disorder known as Cotard syndrome, and persons afflicted often deny the existence of one or multiple body parts, but in some extreme cases, patients deny that they themselves exist, and paradoxically come to believe that they are dead. Named after French neurologist Jules Cotard, in 1880 he described a middle-aged woman who believed her body was completely hollow, with the exception of her skin and bones. As such, she insisted she didn't need to eat and eventually died of starvation.
Now that is sad. See how some death can be sad? Yeah, that was pretty sad.
Believe themselves to be immortal, as from their delusional perspective, you can't die if you're already dead. Can't really argue with that logic. A more recent case from 2012 describes a man who, after suffering a stroke, grew convinced he was dead. He told his doctor, I guess I'm dead. I'd like to ask for your opinion. But when asked if he believed it...
Let me see. No, you're good. Oh, possible, man. Can you imagine thinking you're dead? That's so weird.
For a dead man to speak, he recognized the contradiction, yet paradoxically maintained his belief of non-existence. He felt...
Have you seen the man with the 7-second memory? Which is worse, this or that? I'm not entirely certain. This guy. The man with the 7-second memory, he only recognizes his wife. He doesn't know anything that's happened to him in his entire life. And anything that does happen, he just forgets 5 seconds later. So is he really alive? But this guy over here, he still remembers everything. And he's still going around living. He just doesn't value life in the moment as much as Clive Waring, the man with the 7-second memory. I don't know. I feel like they're both pretty sad. Even though this is more dangerous, obviously. Geez, starving to death because you think you're already dead? Man. On one hand, 7-second memory, you can see old memes. Just like the first time you saw it. Yes. I didn't think of that. Listen, you were joking, but having a 7-second memory in these days is better than before. Because now, everything is tailored to a very short attention span anyway. So you can have a blast on TikTok without knowing anything about anything, right? Let's say. But if you want to read a book or watch a movie, that doesn't really work. Clive Waring liked to watch sports because, like, every possession is cool on its own. But that's interesting. You're over a meme in 7 seconds. Exactly. That's good. On the other hand, being dead means you don't plan on paying taxes. It's a toss-up. But what if the government shows up on your door? Hi, tax time. Where have you been? Nowhere. I'm dead. I've been nowhere for the past 5 years. Wait, how do you earn money if you think you're dead? You don't earn money. Why are we talking about taxes? The woman wasn't eating. The ADHD culture coming in clutch. Exactly.
I feel I am dead, but I'm talking with you in this world. I do not know whether I am alive or not. I am unable to realize that I'm alive. A few months later, his condition fortunately improved and he no longer believed himself to be dead, yet he maintained that he once had been. Oh, and he also believed that Kim Jong-il was a patient at the same hospital. Naturally.
What? He maintains that he used to be dead. That's interesting. He's a cured patient, but he thinks he used to be dead?
Man in Bosnia decided to fake his own death in an effort to uncover how many friends and family members would attend his funeral. Unfortunately for him, only one person attended his fake service, and that person was his mother.
One person? That guy must have been devastated. Oh no. And then he comes back and he's like, I'm not dead, hi. He's like, huh? Oh, hi, Bob. Where you been?
In early 1921, an American named Thomas Bradford decided he was going to prove the existence of an afterlife. In order to realize such an impossible task, Bradford reasoned that the most logical course of action would be for him to commit suicide and then communicate the existence of an afterlife from beyond the grave.
Seems like a pretty tight plan.
He began by publishing a newspaper advert in search for a spiritualistic accomplice that would remain alive and wait for the spirit of Bradford to return from the dead, thus undeniably ascertain a different plane of existence. A foolproof plan, or at least a woman named Ruth Doran thought so as she quickly responded to Bradford's advert.
1983! That's so recent.
After a few meetings of what I can only imagine must have consisted of intense scrutinization of this ingenious plan, Bradford took his own life on the 5th of February 1921.
Wow.
With the full intention of returning to this plane of existence and relay any juicy details about the world beyond to his lively accomplice. A week later, Doran claimed she had actually been in contact with the ghost of Bradford.
Yeah, I mean, if you're that far into the plan, you better come back with something, right? The guy died.
This is some of what he had to say. I am the professor who speak to you from the beyond. I have broken through the veil. I woke up and at first did not realize that I had passed on. I find no great change apparent. I expected things to be much different. They are not. Human forms are retained in outline, but not the physical. I have not traveled far. I am still much in the darkness. I see many persons. They appear natural. There is a lightness of responsibility here, unlike in life. One feels full of rapture and happiness. Make of that what you will.
Wow. I wonder what she thought of the incident 60 years later. 60 years she lived after that.
Once your brain dies, there is no chance of revival. But some disagrees with this view of death and argues that as long as the brain is left intact, it should be possible to restore brain activity at a later date. At least theoretically. While no one is
just like jumpstart it? I mean... maybe. I don't know. We'll see, I guess, one day.
Ever returned from complete brain cessation, it is plausible that future medical advances could allow for that to happen. And this mere plausibility is enough for some individuals to literally put their body on ice in the hopes that in the future...
What is that, an ileostomy? What's on his abdomen? What is this?
Is enough for some individuals...
I want to watch this whole video. Okay, so he's dead, and now they're trying to keep the blood flowing until they can freeze him properly. But what's on his abdomen? Have you tried just hooking it up to a car battery? You never know. Here's the deal. If it was that easy, then we just watched Michael Reeves, right? If someone's in the electric chair and they get electrocuted, shouldn't they just come right back? You know? And then die again and then come right back? So I guess it doesn't work. Feels bad, man.
To literally put their body on ice in the hopes that in the future they can be unfrozen and resurrected, a practice known as cryonics. The first person to be cryopreserved was an American by the name of James Bedford, who in 1967 died of cancer and was subsequently frozen. Over 250 individuals have since undergone this expensive procedure, and thousands more plan on joining them. The question is, Is this a form of suspended animation or a freezer?
Are there actually human beings in there? Dead human beings. This is a wooden door. That's it? I don't think those are human bodies.
In 2016, scientists successfully restored a frozen rabbit brain to near perfect condition, demonstrating that sub-zero preservation is feasible. But the next issue is revival. While some microscopic animals have successfully been frozen, unfrozen, and revived, larger mammals like ourselves are significantly more complex.
What happened to the
In any
rabbit?
case, cryonics is currently one of the most plausible methods of escaping death. So while there is some tangible hope for the future to save us from the cruelty of non-existence, the present will, for the time being, remain a dystopian netherworld filled with pain, suffering, Denmark, death, and despair.
Denmark. Death and despair. Good one, Mr. Swede. Ooh! Chat! Did you know you can do that? You can mute a tab! That's solid. That's solid information. I did not know that at all. Okay. What happened to the rabbit brain, though? This is the first time I watched LEMMiNO on stream. Link in the description, by the way. Let me know if there's another episode that would make sense.